the APC to desist from name-calling and backstabbing. He reiterated that the party's national convention would hold March the 26th. The president urged the APC members to remain steadfast and maintain unity if the party electoral act. The clause bars government appointees from engaging in party conventions, congresses to elect new leaders or candidates without resigning. As the 2023 elections draw near, there are plans and conversations concerning candidates, parties and strategies. In a discussion session with a professor of political economy and author of a book, Why Not?, Professor Tome, the need for young people...
They're spending far too much time on Twitter abusing each other rather than acting rationally together. That's the point I was trying to make. That in our time, we didn't quarrel that much based on those kinds of things. Now, by the way, I was not part, well, actually I wasn't part. The third force thing, because I ran under APC in 2019, I ran for office. So I could not have been in the third force, but I encouraged it. The people who were organizing it came to me, and I gave them money, what little I had, because I thought it was important to do. But I was a member of the APC. I was, in fact, a candidate. I was running for office under that banner. What happened in 2019 with the group, first and foremost, was there was too much ego tripping on the part of many of the people who came up. That's okay, that's human. But also, the APC and PDP, their machine was still much better oiled back then. We don't have any excuse if we don't chase these guys out next year, because their machines have cracked, engines have knocked, and we need to organize, and we are organizing. I don't like to call it third force. I like to call it the alternative platform, because I think that APC, PDP are one party. The alternative people's-based party. If you will, a construction of a coalition of women. And we saw what happened last week in the National Assembly. This class has contempt for women. They have contempt for young people. They have contempt for intellectuals. Just construct an alliance of these groups with labor, which is what we're doing right now. Get these guys out. Very easy, I think.
The Adamawa State House of Assembly is working on a bill that would mandate all job seekers, applicants for political appointment, and students seeking admission into any tertiary institution of learning to undergo a mandatory drug test. The bill, which was sponsored by former Speaker of the House, Right Honorable Kabiru Mijin-Yawa, seeks to control the adverse effect of drugs and other illicit substance abuse on society, and also for legislative backing to strengthen the fight against drug abuse. The report.
Adamawa is one of the states in the northeast that is confronted with drug abuse cases by its teeming youths, and the State House of Assembly is working round the clock to checkmate such cases. Speaking at the opening of the public hearing on the draft legislation, the Deputy Speaker of the State Assembly, Makondo Pamwankeno, said the bill passed into law will make it mandatory for drug tests to be conducted for all job seekers, applicants for political appointment, and...
Drugs and illicit substance abuse has become a fashion amongst public and civil servants. The bill is therefore a deliberate effort by the sponsor and the honorable members to curtail the trend by nipping the problem input through legislation.
Others gathering are persons and agents of the state in the front lines of the anti-drug campaign to consider the piece of legislature, who are of the view that if the bill is passed into law, it would be a game changer in the anti-drug campaign.
We believe maybe by enacting this law, we'll reduce some crime in our society. Robbery, kidnapping, roaming about.
Are the leaders tomorrow. But with this development of drug abuse, the chances of them to be leaders tomorrow is blinking.
The Katsina State Command of the Nigerian Police has repelled an attack by suspected terrorists, neutralizing 4 of them and recovering 131 rustled cows and 55 sheep. The police spokesman in the state, Gambo Isar, disclosed this while briefing newsmen on Saturday in Katsina. According to him, on March 11, 2022, a credible intelligence was received that terrorists in their numbers were on motorbikes shooting periodically with AK-47 rifles. They attacked Yanmanman village and Mulufashi local government area. The suspected bandits rustled 7 cows and were on their way into the forest. The then DPO Kankara was quickly alerted and blocked their exit route into the rogue forest. The Federal Competition Consumer Protection Commission, in collaboration with the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, National Information Technology Development Agency, and the Nigerian Police Force, raided some illegal financial institutions operating on Okpebi Road in Ikeja, Lagos. Among the financial institutions affected were the Go Cash, Okash, Easy Credits, Cash Cash, Speed Choice, Easy Money, as the FCCP said it was in response to customers' complaints of malpractices by the financial institution. Speaking during the raid, the Chief Executive Officer of FCCPC, Babatunde Irukere, explained that customers had accused financial institutions of violating their privacy in their debt recovery drive. Poor nutrition costs Nigeria over $1.5 billion in GDP every year, threatening the health of citizens and the economic potential of the nation. Fortifying staple foods with key vitamins and minerals is one of the most scalable, sustainable, and most cost-effective tools to combat malnutrition in Nigeria and worldwide. This was the main thrust at the 4th Annual Nigerian Food Processors and Nutrition Leadership Forum to announce progress in fortifying staple foods with essential vitamins and minerals. Justin Akadonye has more in this report.
At the 4th Annual Nigeria Food Processing and Leadership Forum, data showing significant progress in the fortification of staple foods in Nigeria was presented. During the last 4 years, the forum has experienced increased engagement by the federal government and CEOs of Nigerians and a decline for others, largely due to supply chain issues caused by the pandemic of COVID-19. Also, the issue of the Russia-Ukraine crisis came to the fore with a specific mention of wheat production.
It's not a false claim. And I'm sure that NAFDAC has also been working on this because we've got several visits from NAFDAC on this issue. So it's not a wasted question, and we are on top of it. We are also working on not just the saturated fats, we're also working on use of multi-purpose tankers and trailers in conveying vegetable oil. And we are working with NAFDAC on that.
As of today, prices of wheat have gone up. Now, there's a lag in the system that comes because of inventory controls and inventory management, but it is something that we need to be sitting down with government today to discuss about what measures can we put in place to alleviate what is coming down the road.
Russia and Ukraine, they do almost about 13% of the world's urea and then 26% of the world's potash. And then phosphate also, they are one of the largest in the world. So, and that though has actually, gone up. There will be scarcity of food generally, because people will not be able to access fertilizers going forward. And we will not see the effect now, but in the next 2-3 months, this thing is going to show.
Fortifying staple foods has been proven to be one of the most cost-effective and scalable tools to combat malnutrition and save lives.
There's need for a regular eye test in order to detect and treat glaucoma before it enters a danger zone.
Glaucoma Week adopts a common theme to observe the initiative. This year's theme is "The World is Bright, Save Your Sight." This brings to fore the need for citizens to take responsibility and good care of their eye to prevent vision impairment and irreversible blindness caused by glaucoma and other blinding eye conditions. This initiative puts a spotlight on glaucoma as a leading cause of preventable irreversible blindness worldwide. However, so many people are unaware they have the disease or may not have access to much needed care. This is Bethesda Home for the Blind. Some visually impaired students tell us the story of how the silent thief stole their sight away. Meet Nathaniel Ndukwe, a 200-level visually impaired student of the University of Lagos who wasn't born blind.
We started, let's say, about 10 years ago when I was working with Julius Berger Nigeria PLC as a subcontractor. So that is when I started noticing the slight change on my sight. So just like that, I started going from one eye clinic to another. That's when they now confirmed it to be glaucoma.
Christopher, a CN, had similar experience than Nathaniel. He used to believe that blindness affects older people until he was caught up with the blindness in his early 20s.
I used to pay people to take me out. As I told you before, before you take me out, people demand money from me. They will ask me for money. I'll pay you. But sometimes if I don't have that money to pay them, that's why I feel that embarrassment and everything. So now challenge on the road and everything.
Their eye condition isn't stopping them from improving and working towards achieving greater visions.
I passed through the craft class, so I learned how to make bead and otherwise. So that before I now moved to the jam class, where I sat for jam. So there have been a lot of improvement. Who would ever believe that a blind person can still go to school?
You can bring any computer to me now, I will operate it the way you operate computer. There's no phone. I can tell you that. Even myself now, I can challenge you now. Let's make it a phone. There's nothing you can do on phone I cannot do.
With over 15 years of experience as an optometrist and an eye wellness promoter, Rose Azike speaks on how to reduce the risk of developing glaucoma.
Now, number one is a family history of glaucoma. If your mother, your father, or someone in your family has glaucoma, there is a likely chance your risk of getting it is high because it's hereditary. That's number one. Then two is age. Starting from age 40, people that are age 40 and above are at an increased risk of getting glaucoma. Then other things are eye injury, ocular trauma.
She wants the government at all levels and private organizations to create an awareness about glaucoma while advising regular checks of the eye. Ngozika or HHC, Plus TV News.
Coming up next on our Street Views, Nigerians express concern over maintenance culture of government infrastructure. Take a listen.
Actually, I'm not satisfied with the way we handle government properties and equipments in the country. Take, for instance, if you look at our roads, when the roads are constructed, they are always good. We will celebrate, but in the next 2-3 years, come and look at the road again, everything it will be something else. There will be potholes, there will be this, and there will be all over the road. Even the street lights will no longer, you see the bulbs are not working again. And that is because we lack this maintenance culture in Nigeria.
They leave these things to totally decay just in order to allocate unnecessary cash to do them, such that they can siphon this cash at the end of the day. Now, so when they are supposed to maintain this thing, when the decay is very little, they don't do it. Do you get? So once something that's supposed to fix with very little cash, when they start seeing the decay, they don't do it. They allow it to totally collapse so that they can allocate money such that it can benefit their pocket. That's what they do. So maintenance culture is basically zero. We pray that we don't suffer dearly for our negligence.
Government facilities are poorly managed, are poorly maintained because there are no checks and balances, and also because of the bureaucracy nature of governance. For you to even just get somebody to come and clean the place, you need to get an approval from one director from Abuja. One director needs to send approval to one, So the bureaucracy process is really one of the factors that is also affecting the maintenance culture of government facilities.
And to other parts of Africa, police in Zimbabwe prevented opposition party leader Nelson Chamisa from holding a rally for supporters of a citizens' coalition for change ahead of the by-election slated for March the 26th. Despite ban on protesting, thousands of Zimbabweans took to the streets on Saturday as a riot police looked at the protesters rebelliously. The supporters of opposition leader Nelson Chamisa danced ahead of the by-election scheduled on March 26. Activists of the Citizen Coalition for Change gathered in Marandera, a city located 70 kilometers away from Harare. The police prevented the opposition party leader from holding a rally. As elections approach, discontent against President Emerson Mnangagwa parties rises. The atmosphere is getting increasingly tense each time an opposition rally is organized. In late February, an opposition supporter was killed and more than a dozen wounded. The police say the attackers were activists from ZANU-PF, the ruling party. And outside Africa, Ukrainian and Russian negotiating teams had started discussing concrete topics rather than exchanging ultimatums. Zelensky spoke at a news conference in Kyiv. He said he discussed the war with the Chancellor Olaf Scholz and President Emmanuel Macron. German and French leaders then spoke to Putin by phone and urged Russian leader to order an immediate ceasefire. Now, former U.S. President Donald Trump on Saturday said the United States needs to help stop Russia's brutal invasion of Ukraine by permanently eliminating dependence on Russian energy. He told supporters of his the rally in Florence, South Carolina, that he thinks the conflict could lead to a World War III.
We need to help stop this brutal invasion. We also have to clean out the rot of our failed foreign policy establishment. It is indeed rotten to the core before these total lunatics lead us down the path of national ruin and World War III. They will do it too. We have to continue to drain the swamp. We did a lot of it, but the swamp was deep, deeper than anybody believed. Despite all of Biden's weakness, cowardice, and incompetence, there is still a path for him to end this. Worse and worse. He's not going to accept it, and we don't have anybody to talk to him. You had somebody to talk to him with me. Nobody was ever tougher on Russia than me. I'm the one that stopped the pipeline. I had it stopped. I'm the one that put all the sanctions on. And I'm the one that he didn't attack during our administration. Everyone's asking about that now, even the radical left reporters up there. The U.S. must make clear to Putin that he has two choices: to negotiate peace right now or else face blistering consequences, including a push to permanently eliminate dependence on Russian energy. And we're talking about forever or for a long, long time, because without the money coming in from energy, Russia doesn't work.
And that's a 1.4% growth compared to 13.42 trillion naira recorded as of the previous month. This represents an increase of 183.8 billion naira in the review month. This is contained in an audited report of the pension funds industry portfolio for the month of January 2022. And in entertainment, Katy Perry will no longer have to pay $2.8 million, that's £2.1 million, to a rapper who said she stole his song on her hit Dark Horse. Marcus Gray sued Perry in 2014, saying she had plagiarized an 8-note riff from his track Joyful Noise. A jury agreed and awarded him the $2.8 million payout, but a judge later overturned that verdict, saying the melody was not particularly unique or rare. Upholding that decision, an appeal court said the original verdict could have suffocated musical creativity. In a 3-0 verdict, the court said Gray had been attempting to claim an improper monopoly over conventional musical building blocks when he first sued Perry in 2014. And to some sports news, the Premier League has disqualified Chelsea owner Roman Abramovich as the director of club after the oligarch was sanctioned by the United Kingdom. Abramovich had his British assets, including Chelsea, frozen on Thursday as part of the government's response to Russia's invasion of Ukraine. The move puts Russia's prospective sale of the club on hold. The Premier League said Abramovich's disqualification would not impact on the club's ability to train and play. And that's the news brief. For more stories, please follow us at PlusTvAfrica on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel at PlusTvAfrica and PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle. I am Messi Popo. Many thanks for watching.
There is no voting on social media. To vote, you would require a permanent voter's card. To get your PVC, visit cvr.inecnigeria.org. Create your account with a valid email address and start the registration process. An activation link will be sent to you. Click on the link and activate your account. Fill out the form, pick and submit a convenient date and time for your biometrics. Print the application slip, which should have your QR code. On the appointed date, go to the nearest INEC office for your biometric capturing. Thereafter, you will get a registration slip to pick your permanent voter's card when ready. Get your PVC today. This message is from PlusTvAfrica.
This is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Bookie November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on PlusTvAfrica.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Tsadar rayuwa ta fara ƙure haƙurin wasu 'yan Najeriya, musamman ma yadda farashin kayan masarufi ke hauhawa, kasancewar
Young MD, another kept it by my side. Nigeria. A Najeriya ƙasa muna da arziki mu da zamu ji daɗi amma mu ne muke jinjiri mu ne muke jinjiri ba ƙaramin yaro babba har ma ɗan jinjiri ya kamata ku duba babatun a uba mutane da yawa mun yi lafi sai mun tuba babatun addini ko ya shiri ya kini in gaskiya ta zo a faɗa ko da za a kini Nigeria we supposed to be a first na us the last ba a batun relax ya kamata fa mu canza babatun mu gazza kar wani ya zo yana mana fama kallon banza kidnap sending sai mu haɗa kanmu Yoruba Igbo har da ma Hausawanmu sai mu kauda cin hanci ba ma gabanmu Najeriya uwa kusan ita ce ƙasanmu fyaɗe babatun kuɗaɗe muna gudu mu kwana daji babakin gidaje fyaɗe babatun kuɗaɗe muna gudu mu kwana daji babakin gidaje Najeriya shaye-shaye bai da kyau shike damu mu a ƙasanmu ma dai ma fa a yau we need good community we need good education. We need good purity. We need good security. We need good sociality. We need good leaders. Nigeria. Gwamnati ya kamata mafa ku duba. Young MD. Nigeria.
What can the U.S. and its European allies do to prevent or punish a Russian invasion? And a look inside how Ukrainians are preparing to defend themselves. Now, on the Inside Story, the Ukraine-Russia crisis. Hi, I'm Anita Powell, VOA White House correspondent. Behind me is the West Wing of the White House, where President Joe Biden works. The president is briefed daily on a number of issues of national security, lately about Russia's growing military buildup along its border with Ukraine. The U.S. says more than 100,000 Russian troops are amassed at the border, ready to invade at the command of President Vladimir Putin. Among his demands, Ukraine must never be a part of NATO. The U.S. and its allies say the decision is Ukraine's to make. They are supplying weaponry to Ukraine and fortifying defenses throughout the region. We will get the details on troop movements and preparations inside Ukraine later in the show. First, Washington's view of the crisis. Strong words from U.S. President Joe Biden as the drama deepens between Moscow and Washington.
We continue to urge diplomacy as the best way forward. But with Russia's continuing its buildup of its forces around Ukraine, we are ready no matter what happens.
President Vladimir Putin has deployed tens of thousands of troops along the Ukrainian border, not just within Russian territory, but also in Belarus. The White House says more than 105,000 Russian troops surround Ukraine on two sides. Russia objects to Ukraine's desire to join the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and has demanded that the U.S., the most powerful member of the Collective Security Alliance, bar Ukraine's entry. Washington announced on February 2nd that the U.S. would send about 2,000 U.S.-based troops to Poland and Germany and shift 1,000 soldiers from Germany to Romania.
These movements are unmistakable signals to the world that we stand ready to reassure our NATO allies and deter and defend against any aggression.
But military officials have not given up on a diplomatic solution.
We do not believe conflict is inevitable. The United States, in lockstep with our allies and partners, has offered Russia a path to de-escalate. But we will take all prudent measures to assure our own security and that of our allies.
The top U.S. diplomat at the UN says the stakes have never been higher.
The situation we're facing in Europe is urgent and dangerous, and the stakes for Ukraine and for every UN member state could not be higher. Russia's actions strike at the very heart of the UN Charter. This is as clear and consequential a threat to peace and security as anyone can imagine.
Russia fired back, with its ambassador saying Russia does not intend to invade. This dispute between Russia and the U.S. and its NATO allies is about much more than ideology, says analyst and author Angela Stent. A stable Europe is central to U.S. interests, and sending more than $200 million worth of security assistance to non-NATO Ukraine is part of that.
It's not only ideology, it's security. I mean, it's, a system of alliances and a stable European continent, which are in the U.S.'s interests. We don't live in isolation. We're a very large island with two neighbors, right? We're a continent. But so it's more than that. It's not about ideology. It's about power politics, but it's also about principles. Which do have to do with territorial integrity and sovereignty.
Meanwhile, Russia and top U.S. rival China have become ever closer. Beijing expressed dissatisfaction when Russia invaded Georgia, while China hosted the 2008 Olympics. The Chinese capital will host the Winter Games starting this week. With the U.S. threatening heavy sanctions against Russia, and even against Putin himself, if Russia invades Ukraine, Moscow will need support from the world's second-largest economy. Analysts say this could play out slowly as the Olympics take center stage and Washington continues to remind Moscow of the consequences of an invasion.
If it does move into Ukraine, then the economic measures that the United States and others are going to bring to bear, to a certain extent, will push them even further into a junior relationship with China, which is just going to hurt their economy in the long run. I don't really see a lot of strong outcomes here. So that's one of the reasons why I think that a diplomatic outcome might still be on the table, but Russia's going to try to let the clock run as long as possible to let us feel uncomfortable.
And so, as the games begin in Beijing and the war games continue on both sides of Ukraine's border, can these two old rivals find their way back to peace? As Russian officials continue to deny their intention to invade Ukraine, the military buildup continues. VOA Chief Diplomatic Correspondent Cindy Sain reports Russian officials are willing to de-escalate military activity if the White House will address their main security concerns.
Russian President Vladimir Putin made his first comments in weeks Tuesday about Ukraine, blaming the U.S. and NATO for the mounting tensions.
Their most important goal is to contain Russia. That's the thing. In this sense, Ukraine itself is just a tool to achieve this goal. This can be done in different ways. One of them is to draw us into some armed conflict.
But experts note Putin is the one who deployed more than 100,000 Russian troops to Ukraine's border, Crimea, and Belarus to bolster his demand that NATO pull some of its forces out of Eastern Europe and promise to never admit Ukraine. With this military buildup, Putin has put...
We're not going to withdraw NATO infrastructure back to 1997 levels, which is one of the things that they've asked us to do. And so I think he's in a holding pattern waiting for the right...
Ukraine. Some experts say Putin wants to make sure Russia is still viewed as a major player on the world stage. Angela Stent wrote the book Putin's World.
And he believes that the rest of the world should treat Russia as if it were the Soviet Union. He doesn't want to restore the Soviet Union, but he wants to be treated as a great power whose views are respected and where people sort of fear Russia and they accept that Russia has a right to this sphere of influence in its neighborhood.
Some experts say Putin likely sees eastern Ukraine, where a war has been simmering since he annexed Crimea in 2014, as part of Russia.
So I think Putin might acknowledge that Western Ukraine is genuinely Ukrainian and perhaps belongs in the European cultural and political world, but in his eyes, Eastern Ukraine is sort of a version or an extension of Russia.
But what Putin really fears the most is dissent from his own people, says Bill Browder, founder of the Magnitsky Justice Campaign.
The average Russian is worse off, a lot worse off than when he first became president. And that's all, he owns that. That's all on him. And so he's pulling this strategy straight out of the dictator's playbook that when people are mad at you, make them mad at somebody else, start a war.
During his Cindy Sain,
he's made that very, very clear. But he's also made it very clear that we have an obligation to our NATO allies to make sure that we're backing up our Article 5 commitments to the alliance. And so we are exploring a range of options to help bolster the alliance on the eastern flank and to prove our dedication to that very ironclad security commitment inside NATO.
And so clearly, by invading Ukraine, Russia would put the pressure on the U.S. and NATO to bolster their eastern flank with troops and other defenses, yes?
Look, I would argue that already there's a feeling of some pressure inside the alliance to make sure that it is clear to Mr. Putin how seriously all the allies take our mutual defense requirements. So we've got to make sure that that not only do we send a strong signal about NATO solidarity, but that the alliance really is solidly prepared to defend itself if needed.
You mentioned the building up of defenses, and one of those domains that we have in the defense world is cyber. The Deputy National Security Advisor for Cyber is in Europe as we speak. Would a cyber attack on you?
I think I'd rather not characterize it beyond that. That said, you're right that we have seen this out of the Russian playbook before, the use of cyber operations to sow discord or to try to incite violence, to disrupt infrastructure. And we would not be surprised to see that again used by Russia in the run-up to perhaps something more conventional from a military perspective. We have, as you know, we have a small number of trainers in Ukraine, and since 2014, the United States has helped contribute. We all need to be mindful of that and to be watching out for it.
You have said here in this room that Russia has more than 100,000 troops at the border with Ukraine. Russia is denying that currently, so why not declassify some intelligence to show who's telling the truth? Well, look, I mean, we're confident in our assessments, and we are careful in the degree to which we talk about those assessments. I think that's the prudent thing to do here when you're dealing with an actor like Russia. They also have denied that they have any intention to invade Ukraine again, to violate Ukrainian sovereignty. So, a way to prove that would be to take those more than 100,000 occupied Crimea and then in Belarus too. And then the final question, you've been talking about the escalation that Russia has been doing. Have they shown any signs of de-escalating at this point? No, they have not. As I said, even just as recently as today, we continue to see the flow of additional combined arms capabilities from elsewhere in Russia to the border with Ukraine and into Belarus. So no, there's been no sign from a military perspective of de-escalation. Now on the diplomatic side, there was an exchange between Minister Lavrov and Secretary Blinken, and I think you heard Secretary Blinken say that he still believes that there's time and space for dialogue, and we, of all people, we absolutely fully support that and want to see that happen. That's the best way forward here to de-escalate this, this potential crisis here. But from a military perspective, no, we continue to see added capability, and that's deeply concerning.
Ukraine's leaders are trying to calm anxieties of a country trying to conduct business as usual. But it's hard to dismiss the threat across the border. Our Ricardo Marquina has been reporting from inside Ukraine for more than a week, watching Ukrainians trade war preparation tips on social media while trying to live life as normal. Here's his report from Ukraine's capital, Kyiv.
They train on their own time and they buy their own weapons.
I am here to learn fighting techniques and support the army to defend Ukraine.
Russian military pressure on Ukraine, with a massive deployment not far from its eastern border, has once again raised the spectre of war. For many here, the question is not whether there will be a war, but when.
Putin believes that there is no country called Ukraine and that he has to take it under his control. Since he could not do it by changing his government from within, he only has one option left, the military path.
After more weeks of intense media reporting on a possible conflict, those in charge of these exercises want to reduce tensions among the Ukrainian population and are urging calm, including among these trainees.
Our commanders tell us, clean the gun, get ready, and don't panic. That is the Ukrainian way.
The following workday, these men and women will return to their jobs in the city, while in Moscow and Washington, the political tug-of-war that could push them to war will continue. For Ricardo Marquina in Kiev, John Spear, VOA News.
Miroslava Gongadze has covered Ukraine for VOA since 2004 as anchor of our daily TV news show Chaz Time and chief of our Ukrainian service. She has recently been promoted to VOA's Eastern Europe chief, based in Kyiv. I spoke to Miroslava about how the crisis is being handled in Ukraine.
It feels like living near the volcano that can erupt any time. So they kind of get used to this permanent, constant threats, and they they cope with it. However, this recent months, the threat is more imminent, so people are starting preparing more. They are signing up for defense. Local defense groups. They are buying arms. They are buying weapons. They are legally, obviously, it's possible to buy weapons in Ukraine. They are creating safe houses. They are planning their escape routes. They are planning to take their families out.
Do you think that these are evenly matched forces?
Unfortunately, it's definitely not evenly matched forces. I have to say that Ukrainians' armed forces are heavily outnumbered and outgunned by Russia's army. But military experts say that they would be capable of mounting significant resistance and inflicting heavy casualties if Russia were to launch a large-scale invasion.
Let's talk about the different messages coming out of Washington and Kiev, with the White House saying that invasion is imminent, and President Zelensky saying this is overblown. There's no need to overreact. Can you explain to us why we're hearing those two messages and what the consequences of that mixed messaging could be?
My take would be that it's just probably unimaginable for Ukrainians and for Ukrainian government that something like that can happen, meaning that full-scale invasion can happen. Everybody understands that this, if this invasion will happen, that will change Ukraine, it will change the Europe, and will change the
world, is what President Joe Biden said. He said this would be the biggest deal since World War II. Do you agree with that statement?
I totally agree with that. I think the Joseph Biden and our U.S. NATO allies understand, specifically Europeans who are close to member of European Union and those who are close to Russia, like Poland, Romania, those countries in the North Baltic states. They are aware of Russian threats, and they feel and understand it the most. And they do ask United States and NATO to help and to support more.
And then finally, I just want to talk about some of the other players on this very complex chessboard. We see this as a big contest between NATO and Russia, with Ukraine caught in the middle. But let's talk about the other characters. We also have China, and we also have Turkey. Those are two that come to mind.
Turkey is trying to play both cards. They need to maintain their good economic, specifically political relationship with Russia. But at the same time, they do want to have Ukraine, to support Ukraine as well. In terms of China is for years trying to put their foot into Ukrainian economy, and there are some forces in Ukrainian government, in the Ukrainian parliament, who are supporting China's involvement and bigger engagement with China.
Any clash between Russia and Ukraine will threaten Europe's energy security. The European Union gets about a third of its natural gas from Russia. Economic sanctions are expected to target Russia's energy sector, and China is watching the situation with great interest. Our Henry Ridgewell has the insights.
Help. The policy I think China is likely to take is to do whatever they can to help the Russians to face up to the economic sanctions that the US and Europeans may impose on Russia. Economic links between China and Russia are not really strong enough to replace any break off of economic links between Russia and Europe.
China has offered political support for Moscow in its stand.
The pains which Russia can inflict to the United States and NATO.
Meanwhile, China is closely watching NATO and America's response to any Russian invasion.
Even though there's these troop deployments to Eastern European states, no states are talking about directly sending troops into Ukraine itself to defend. And of course, China is taking note of that with some of their own territorial disputes in their own area.
Taiwan is China's biggest territorial dispute, and there is a risk of miscalculation as Beijing watches events unfold in Ukraine, says Steve Tsang.
The Chinese seeing the Americans and the Europeans talking big, but not doing very much about it, which would embolden them over Taiwan and potentially miscalculate what the American responses to a crisis over Taiwan might be.
Despite their mutual rivalry with the US, China and Russia's interests don't always align. Beijing's multi-trillion-dollar Belt and Road Initiative cut through several former Soviet bloc states, including Ukraine. A direct rail and ferry freight link opened in 2016, linking China with Ukraine's Black Sea coast via Georgia, Azerbaijan and Kazakhstan, bypassing Russia. China has also funded infrastructure projects, including a new metro line for Kiev. If Russia invades Ukraine, could Beijing's investments in the region be at risk?
The more immediate impact on the Belt and Road Initiative would in fact be the Russian military intervention in Kazakhstan. And the Chinese government actually have shown that they are quite relaxed and comfortable with that. To them, it's more important to support authoritarian states and autocrats to stay in power, and then for some of them to be closer to Russia than to China at the moment. Over the longer term, things may change.
In the short term, analysts say China is keen to keep a lid on the simmering tensions for at least the next few weeks as it prepares to host the Winter Olympics. Henry Ridgewell for VOA News, London.
Thanks for watching. Follow me on Twitter at 6ArmsPowell. Connect with VOA News on Instagram and Facebook, and stay with voanews.com for all the latest news and
This is it for upcoming artists to blow in Nigeria.
Welcome to Plus Trending. I am Booking November, your host, saying thank you for joining us on today's episode.
Welcome back. It's tea time on PlusTvAfrica.
Practice makes perfect. I'm not perfect yet, but I'm a lot better than I used to be.
He's a king. He's entitled to marry 100 if he wants to.
Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges. The growing youth population with little engagement, that is a ticking time bomb. We are a blessed people with diverse culture and highly cerebral minds who have a lot to say. And yes, we are talking. It is important we drive the right conversation that informs, inspires, influences thoughts and action. If we say there's beauty in our diversity, then let us embrace our diverse culture. We must continue to courageously be the voice of transformation as we are the hope for the future. Yesterday's conversations shape today. What are you saying to shape your tomorrow? We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you.
Hey, what's up, guys? You're welcome to another edition of Plus Event, and I remain your host, Ifeoluwa Oshukeye.
Your absence isn't an excuse anymore, as Plus Events is all you need, as we bring you the glitz, the glamour, and loads of fun.
Oh, definitely. Right, no question. He's a living legend.
No, God forbid, Holy Ghost fire, no.
I just want to be blown away. I want to be wild. This is 11 years of doing it.
I'm surrounded by so much positivity. No, it's okay.
Yo, what's up, my people? It's your boy Starboy Terry. You're watching
Plus Event on Plus TV.
Stay glued to Plus TV Africa every Saturday and Sunday, 4:30 p.m. West African time.
What we do not understand, we will stigmatize.
What you can see is the remaining of the tanker that exploded.
He suffered equally confessed.
A 500 naira they collect them. If you no talk, then go beat you. Now 2,500 when they pay.
Hello and welcome to Space and Style, a property show designed to connect various stakeholders across the property value chain. We can also provide realistic solutions and deepen your knowledge about the interesting world of real estate. We shall showcase architectural design, interior design trends, lifestyle and real-time property news updates, and the right way to navigate through property development and investment. Join me every week on this channel as I take you through an exciting journey in the world of real estate.
Space and Style, 6:30 p.m. on Saturdays and 5:30 p.m. on Wednesdays.
We're in the lounge. There's something intangible that connects us all together in this world, more than we can see. Some of us call it the divine, but today we're going to be talking about spirituality. And spirituality is not about religion. Religion is a route to spirituality, but some people also are spiritual without religion. Yes. So we'll be back in a minute. Here, here.
Welcome back. For me, spirituality is about, it stems from religion, how I communicate with my creator, how I have a conversation with him and get into my inner side, how I deal with my problems, how I deal with my relationships, how I solve problems and fears. That is how I've seen spirituality.
So it's coming from somewhere inside somewhere. It's inside us. Our spirituality is inside us. I mean, yes. I would think.
And the need to connect with a higher being, whichever route we want to go. I mean, I like if Ifoma saying there is spirituality and religion is the route through which people get into their spirituality. But it's not religion. It's actually that need to connect inside to a higher being. And to help us live life, to keep us rooted in life.
So spirituality begins with what you have been taught to connect with, or what?
I think that everybody starts out with something, because if you notice, we all know what's good and what's bad fundamentally, which is why even a child will hide when they're doing certain things. And you haven't taught them that that thing is bad. But there's something, there's an innate thing, an innate spirit that connects all of us. You know, whilst value systems help us to, as it were, regulate our living, but there's something that tells us that to beat a person cannot be right, but to love, it feels right. Yeah. And I think it's that thing within us makes conscience? It certain things. Your conscience is a part of your spirituality because it tells you when you're doing the wrong thing, and it's important as an internal guide. But for me, spirituality, it really transcends religion because I just think that it's our common humanity and the importance of living right. And I think very often we're in this world to go back, if you see what I mean.
To where we came from.
To where we came from. But to live a life that is worthy of the things that we don't quite understand that draw us. You know, a lot of the time, people don't know what it is that draws them to the divine. It has to be a connection. This divine is a word we use, but the divine is everywhere. So all of us are connected to this one source. And that's what makes, I think, conversations about spirituality really difficult because there's noise. The background noise of religion. Religion brings its own noise.
Yes.
It brings its own noise. Yes. And it takes us away from the thing that we understand, that we're all one, and that we need to love each other. Religion brings concepts and rules and dogmas, which are meant to aid us in that spiritual journey.
I was just going to say, is that bad?
No, it's not about being bad. It's that when you have rules, human beings, when you set rules for them, they will follow the rules. And sometimes they will not go outside of that. But if you look at spirituality as something that doesn't have boundaries, it's about this love and connection that has no boundaries, and that makes you desire to do the right thing in whatever circumstance, then you know it's a really difficult concept to discuss.
So even explain to yourself.
Exactly.
No, okay, why don't we start from the perspective of what our perceptions of spirituality is. Spirituality is deep within. So for me, I always ask myself, I was born a Christian, right, in one denomination. I became a Christian in another denomination as time went by. But I ask myself, even if I didn't know all of these things, right, that my faith has taught me, there's something that I always go back to, which is what Ifeoma said, and which is what I think is key, which is what bothers me as a person. The fact that if only we love each other. Because I have a priest that was an old friend of mine that used to say, you know what, when I say, what's the way that we can stop wars and troubles? If you cut me, I bleed. Every single being, for as long as you breathe, you bleed. Therefore, whatever I do to others should matter, just like what I do to myself. That, for me, is spirituality.
It's a baseline.
And I think whether I was Christian or Muslim or pagan or whatever, I just kind of sense that it's just there.
It's the essence of who you are, yes.
But who are you?
That's the thing. You discover that. Yes. It's a journey. You don't know it all at once, and there's no particular way that it's shown to you. So at every point in time, as you're changing, your essence is changing. It changes with your experiences. Now, they say people are spirit, soul, and body. You see, those changes occur in your soul realm. That's where the outer affects it. Your spirit realm stays the same. Your real essence stays the same. But the changes happen that allow that to come through, to shine through. But like you said, we have to connect to the divine.
Understand. I don't understand what you're saying.
I mean, I have met people online that have never seen me before. And what I do, every time I go to a city now, I meet my online friends. If I know they stay there.
What city?
Any city.
Oh, okay.
I just came back from Abuja, and there are 3 people I've never met before. And I've just met them. You know, so every time I meet them, I put it back on Facebook. That, I've met them finally. So
they could get the sense of who you are.
One person said, she said she's as beautiful on the inside as she's online. The essence of me is not lost in my words. I've been her friend for 2 years, and we'd never met before.
Do you think, because there's this, well, I tend to think that we are spiritual beings having a human experience.
Yes. I feel so too.
So do you believe in reincarnation then?
Well, will I say reincarnation? I just feel as if, when you have a sixth sense, when you sense, you sense a presence. I often tend to spend, have that feeling, you're somewhere as if, you're connected spiritually with someone, or something is here, or that kind of thing. Or do you understand? And sometimes you go feel as if, are you not? There's something wrong with you. But I always find
we call that Ajay.
Witchcraft. I feel like as a human being, it's something that you can't explain it, but there's
Yes,
this
no
thing
words.
there's a desire to connect to something that you can't, that's intangible.
If that's the
something.
case, would you say an armed robber, a thief, or a domestic abuser, or whatever has some spirituality?
Yes, there's a spirit behind everything. I feel like I'm a spirit. We're all spirits, and there's spirits that drive the things that we do and drive our actions. That's what I believe.
If I'm a negative and positive spirit, or what are we talking about here?
I think there are. And I think that the longer you live and the more you reflect on life and its meaning and the things that happen that you can't explain, you understand that for everything there's a positive and a negative.
Yes. A yin and a yang.
You see, that for everything there is. And so there's always a choice for us as to which path to follow.
Yes.
And I think that we tend to be led in the direction that is the right one. But it's more difficult to be a good person. It's more difficult than to be a bad person. Because you see, if you want something from me, for example, and I have it, but I'm going to use it tomorrow, it's easier to tell you I'm using it tomorrow than to give it to you now. But you see, the idea that we're all connected should make me give it to you and then tell you that I'll use it tomorrow and then take it from you. It hasn't changed anything, but it has affected your spirit and the way that you yourself will treat someone else. But
selfishness.
Yes, exactly. You know, highly religious people, and I use that word advisedly, call all these things spirits. A selfish spirit, a this spirit, a that spirit, you know? And I think that, in a way, they're trying to make the point that there is something underlying those things.
What would we say about that inner, there's this voice in you.
Intuition?
Yes, exactly. That kind of tells you what to do or what path to take somehow.
It's like having an angel on the shoulder and
so sometimes we say,
an imp.
I'm a Christian, but sometimes we see it as maybe it's the Holy Spirit. That's the way we put it in Christianity. But then I feel like there are other people that are not necessarily Christians, or some people are free thinkers, and they have that same thing that maybe they're standing on the road. Something tells them to.
That is a Holy Spirit.
Yes,
holy means it's good.
It's holy, yes.
Do you understand what I mean? So if the Christian wants to appropriate Holy Spirit, that is where it is unfair.
But because we say Holy Spirit.
Then again, there are people that do not believe in. They are not religious in any way.
Yes.
But they are good.
Spiritual.
They're spiritual.
But it's also holy.
It's
holy. Holy is holy. Whether it is Islam or Christian or what is holy is holy, is pure.
That's because you're looking at Holy Spirit as a concept, not an individual. So that's why we don't want to go into religion. Okay. My religion tells me that the Holy Spirit is a person. What you're saying now is a good spirit in terms of holy, in terms of good, right? So yes, if everybody's talking about that concept in terms of that, yes, but then as a whole, that sixth sense.
Spirituality, because I have been raised under one religion and I have since become quite strong in another religion, and in recent times have taken up meditations a lot.
What is that? Meditation not part of Christianity.
I like to know about that, no. In the end, for me, I say to people, spiritually, I do not feel different under any of those three.
So the spirit remains the same. The spirit remains the same across. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
The spirituality is about
spirit of the person and the essence of the person stays and is there and doesn't really change. It's affected by teachings from outside.
Yeah, there you go.
It could be, but if you were a spiritually aware person, attuned person, no matter what the religion, in your journey, you will understand that spirituality is an essence of you, is what carries you. I joke, I tell people when they go religion, I go, look, spirituality, why? Adesua, I did not create myself.
Can you be stronger in this? Can you learn to be better at tapping into that side of you?
Through your religion.
No, not necessarily. I don't want to look at it from religion.
But you can. And you said, you talked about meditation.
Meditation.
Now, I've written a book. It's called Sounds from Silence.
Stillness and silence.
Because in stillness and in silence, in stillness and in silence, there is a connection that you then have. But it requires practice to keep connected with that thing. Yes, you have to keep. No. You see, there's no. You have to. It's nothing. You have to do it. And it's different. The way you connect with it. There are seasons you'll find in your life that when you wish a thing, it manifests.
Hey,
take a break.
What I wish for now is a big paying sponsor. Shall it manifest? I'll be right back. The truth is, in this lounge, there's just too much enjoyment because the conversations get heated up. But the good thing, though, also is that you can continue with this conversation on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, wherever. But I took a break because I wanted Ifeoma to tie in that conversation about when you wish it. It is me. I was wishing for more sponsorship. Ifeoma said, if you wish something positive.
No, you see, what it is there are seasons in your life when you're really connected. After my mother died, okay? I think I
How
was
many years ago? How old were you?
I was an adult. She died in 2003. Because I was so reflective and so meditative, I remember thinking one day, I was just thinking that I want to go to South Africa for Christmas. And he said, and he was thinking, but we can pay for our trips. I said, no, we're going to South Africa. That's what it is, you know.
So meanwhile, South Africa was in your mind while you were burying your mother?
No, it wasn't. I said I was just going home and thinking to myself, I'd like to go to South Africa for Christmas.
And then it's
because my children didn't come home that Christmas after my mother died. They went to my sister in America. They were in school in England. So I just said I'd like to go to South Africa. And when I got home, South Africa was waiting for me, is the point I'm making.
Wow.
Because there are times when you're in that place, in that zone, in that spiritual zone, where you're connected to the divine, to the universe, and to the things that work in the universe, and you call them to you. And that is what I think meditation does for you.
So are we saying, is that why they say, mother, stop calling your children foolish, idiot?
Yes, but apart from even any other thing...
That the spirits will take it and...
Apart from any other thing, if you tell a child the child is stupid, the child will lose confidence. So even there. But that's also part of it. And I have learned that my utterances matter. So there are certain things now that I won't say until they manifest. Because you see, sometimes I feel that when I say them in certain places, it's taken away from me. And it has happened enough times that I know that I shouldn't.
They say don't share your... So be careful who you share your secrets or your successes or your stories with. Or your
dreams. When they say call things to being. You see, this is where I get lost.
It's the space.
You call things to being.
It's the space that you do it in. And the other people who have spirits too, who are working within that space. You know, serendipity is a word I like. Because there's no coincidence. The things we call coincidences are the universe arranging themselves for us to achieve the things we need to achieve. And that's part of our spirituality.
I want to say something about silence.
Yes.
One of the darkest times of my life, really, really dark, was I tried to commit suicide when my... Thank the night over, but giving the children, so they were drowsy already. And I just thought to myself, you know, who will save me? That was my last thought. Honestly, I can't remember. We lived about maybe 100, I don't know, miles away from these people. They came from, we had friends. They're pastors now, but they weren't pastors then. She said her husband just said, "Where's Dion?" And he picked up the phone and called me. And he said there was something in my voice. I can't remember opening the door for him. I can't remember him packing our stuff. We spent a week in their house. All I know is that we were, from my last thought of being, we'll all just sleep. Who will save me?
Who will save? I
found myself.
That's a call.
So it was almost as if I called someone.
That was your call to
I didn't remember
the
going to,
universe.
because I had to go downstairs to open the door. I didn't remember anything.
Yes, it was.
I just found myself in their house for a week with the children.
Yes.
So be careful what you say.
Automatic. You see, I need
You
to
want to
have
call some
a
No, but you know why it cannot be automatic? Because your mind, the thinking part of you, needs to be put under control.
Silence.
Yes. Yes. And then that is when your spirit is able to flow with the
Bring to
universe.
subjection the things of the mind.
Yes.
That's what
No,
it
but
is.
tell me how this is different from intuition.
Oh,
intuition is
like
the knowledge of something
that
was
is going to happen.
It's like a warning.
And it's given to you from the universe.
From the universe. But then again, how many times have you thought of, okay, if you get on this flight, it's going to crash, and then it's a fear that you probably try to overcome, and you get on it and nothing happens?
That's fear.
That's fear. That was not intuition.
The alchemist.
Yes. About how you call.
You
know, when you have made up your mind about something, the universe has a way of responding
I would like
to
to see
you.
What is it called?
It's also the idea of
alchemist.
serendipity and the role you play. Because even when something is happening for you, if you don't recognize it, if your spirit is not attuned to receiving that which you desire, you will not recognize it. So that's always my prayer. That my spirit is always attuned to receiving that from the universe. Yes, in whatever way. For example, my key, I was telling you the story about the key on the car.
Yes.
Do you know I drove the car out with the key on the bonnet? Went out, came back, the key fell off. So this morning, as I was getting ready to come here, they couldn't find the car key, but I always have a car key. So we use it. And I said that it has to be along the road. And I said, Lord, where are we going to start from? That I'll be giving my key, my only key to the driver. It's not going to happen. As we were driving along the road, I raised my head and I looked left, and there was the key. On the floor, in the middle of the road in VGC. And so I said to the driver, that's the key, park. So you can't tell me that the divine doesn't exist. You can't tell me that there's no serendipity.
So the divine is in our spirituality.
Yes.
You know, okay, let me
say connection. It's the thing that connects our spirituality.
Okay, let me see. This is from The Alchemist. To realize one's destiny is a person's only obligation, which means that, and it says that it's in the bedrock of your own heart. Wow.
You know that thing they say that nobody can teach you anything but that which you already know within yourself.
Inside of you. Yes. So where we get it wrong in our society today, in our world today?
The rules and regulations of religion.
And then the rules of religion. Rules of religion and the noise. And the noise.
The background noise that distracts.
Everybody has
people about how you should connect.
I hear people that go to sacred places and just stay on themselves and just there for weeks and try to connect with, and then they come back refreshed and all of that.
Like a retreat.
Like just by yourself and
go to a garden, a beautiful garden. Go to nature. Once you sit in a garden, I remember I used to take regular, like 1 or 2 day retreats. By myself, just go to the countryside. No, not just go to the countryside and just sit. And I would ask questions of the divine, whatever I perceive him to be or her to be. And I would get responses in that silence.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I don't think that this mother of two under twos, can she have those quiet moments?
She can.
You have to. Or she should.
Your quiet moments don't have to be 2 days.
Was small.
Exactly.
In terms of the silent prayer, and just at night, sit on the floor, on the carpet in their room, and engage with the divine. Honestly, I wish I could do it now. That was when I was doing it, when they were small.
When my children was out of fear? What was
it wasn't out of fear. I just used to pray. I'd sit on the floor in their room and just engage in prayer.
Were you calling them positive names?
I wasn't that kind of prayer. You see, I do. It was just quite. It's silent.
That's the noise.
It was silent prayer. Just engage in having a conversation with my Maker about life and about just engaging. Honestly. This is when you can do it.
What is it about? Like no requests, no.
You can whatever you like. However,
so I just sit and I just say, God.
Meditation. Daddy, what do you call God? When you talk to him, Dad. What do you call him?
God.
What do you call him?
I call him many things.
Sometimes I say, oh boy, this is... oh boy, look.
Oh boy, resolve this issue for me.
Stop this matter here now.
Somebody said once that, he just behaves anyhow. And I just got it, Because she was just saying, he just behaves anyhow, he does anyhow, to see, and it's an acknowledgement of the power of the divine.
What do you call him?
I wonder when people say they don't believe in God, they don't believe God exists, they don't believe... So as a Christian, I have my own beliefs, but I feel like everybody should have a belief in something that's supernatural, something that this world is already...
Okay. Divine is the word.
Divine.
There's a big...
But if you don't have any of those things, if you say that if you're a free thinker and you don't have any...
You're talking about Christianity, Islam. There's this young man, what does he call himself? Ogun believer or something like that. The traditional worshipper.
Yes.
Who was at a hotel in America.
Yes. A friend of mine, and he rang me. He had a really bad day.
Yeah.
And he was saying, the God of his fathers, forefathers, the way they pray, they worship. He's an Ogun worshipper. The night before, that if you're here, answer me, show me yourself.
Show me your power.
And he was having a meeting, everybody else, he was a really black person, and a white waiter comes up to him and says in Yoruba, in the States, and says in Yoruba, She Awoni, that means, are you like a worshipper? Are you one of the priests?
Yes.
And he said, no, but Yoruba, I'm Yoruba.
Yes.
And the boy spoke to him, he's Venezuelan.
Yes.
He comes from a family of owls.
Yes.
He spoke to him completely in Yoruba and said, the divine said, I will meet you here today. Yes. Here's my card, give me a call. Yes. Now I said to him, because he rang me, because he knows I'm very spiritual.
Yes.
And he said he didn't understand it. And I said, because you made a call, you touched
a powerful call.
And the only way you could understand is through the way you worship.
Yes.
So the divine came to you in the way you would understand.
You will understand.
A white Venezuelan, come on, speaking Yoruba in the middle of America, in New Jersey.
It's not held back.
So what we should be saying here, though, is because people are very touchy, even talking about this conversation, we don't say, okay, God or Jesus or Muhammad or whatever. The thing is, our spirituality is beyond all of those things.
Yes.
But we find God in the way we have been worshiping. If only people would actually be spiritual, we wouldn't have problems. We'll be defining who is who.
But you know, some people can't find their way to spirituality. That's where religion comes in. And I think that what happens is that people, and I often think that religion, when taken to a certain extent, can actually inhibit you from getting to heights of spirituality. Because it then begins to, this is how to do it. There's a time when it is the divine that has to become your teacher. You get beyond that, beyond religion.
I had a Muslim roommate that actually said one time I was interested, and I asked her, must you pray at a certain time, must it be a certain time? Can't you just be upset about something and just talk to God? Or, can you? She's like, no, she'll wait until the time before she... But I've met other Muslims that say, no, you can have access to God when you're...
that all the time.
Do you understand? So you see, I guess...
It's that's why I said sometimes religion can get in the way, then culture can get in the way. Spirituality, like you said, is not religion. But once you find that they are very spiritual, there's a way that it allows you, you're a spiritual and you're a religious person, it allows you to be stronger in your faith.
Okay, whatever your spirituality, it's there in you. The divine has put it there. And the thing is to connect that spirituality through whatever religion that comes. But the point is, connect your spirituality and get the positive out of it, right? We just have to go. These conversations never end. No, these conversations never end.
Social media.
Social media, continue there. We'll see you again next week. Bye.
Increase the reach of your events or business services. To advertise on Plus TV Africa, please call 0906 000 5719 or 0909 040 8408, or send an email to marketing@plusttvafrica.com. Plus TV Africa. Big stories live here.
Nigeria's Niger Delta region, from where the black gold fuels Africa's largest economy, where the lines between wealth and poverty has never been thinner. Conflicts, poverty, insecurity, and environmental challenges daily confront the region. How can the Niger Delta story be changed for the better?
Join Mamode Akuga at 9 p.m. every Friday evening on Plus TV Africa as he probes deep in search of solutions.
Inside the Niger Delta with Mamode Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
Everyone talks about getting their dream jobs, but what does it take to get that dream job? In a religious society like Nigeria, some people resort to prayer, but did you know that sometimes the only reason you're not getting the job isn't because you don't have the credentials? Many times about how well you can defend your credentials through your presentation and communication skills during the interview. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, the rate of unemployment in Nigeria rose to 33.3% in December 2020 from a 27.1% in 3 months. Interview phobia is a major issue that contributes.
Okay, so I mentioned I struggled. I went to Lagos State University, public university. Nobody taught you any of these things. And so I thought that if I come to the interview space, I would do well because I know I'm good enough. But coming in, it was difficult. I got plenty of rejections, and I made up my mind that if you can get past this thing, you would help other people who are also like you. And so sitting down in that space, I also see people like me, and I feel for them.
According to Student Graduate Report, more than 50% of graduates in Nigeria disclose that communication skill is the least skill their academic education prepared them with.
Like we have a compulsory NYSC every year. I believe the government or the educational sector should do something like, when they know somebody's in their final year, maybe they allow them go through a month or so, or they introduce a course and make it mandatory for them to be able to go out there and face the outside world when it comes to interviews, when it comes to networking and all of that. I've seen super amazing, intelligent people lost opportunities because they were not confident, and those who were not so smart but have built their confidence are able to get the job and get these networks and get these opportunities. Especially when you come from a Yoruba or Igbo family where you don't have to look at your dad in the eye. You get that kind of thing. So you have to learn to look at people in the eye when you talk to them. It makes them believe that you are not up to something. You're not hiding anything in your cupboard.
We're going to school or having to attend different schools, all right? They just teach us, we only have syllabus on what they've been doing so far in past years, and there's no trend of bringing in new things.
So the next time you complain about not getting a job, think about how well your CV is prepared. Assess your communication skills during the interview and think about how well
In Nigeria, hundreds of female children get pregnant in their teen years. Teenage pregnancy is often regarded as a negative occurrence in recent times due to social stigma and other adverse consequences like dropping out of school. According to the World Health Organization, every year, an estimated 21 million girls aged 15 to 19 years in developing her life around. Fear, anxiety and worry became her constant companions.
I found out I was pregnant when I was in school, second year. I had very rough experiences. It was a very, very tough moment for me because I realized that whether I like it or not, my life has changed. And because I knew that I may not be able to control, how my life turns out from that point, I decided to be a girl for as long as I could be. So I tried not to talk about it. I kept it a secret. I didn't talk to anybody about it. I was highly distracted. It was obvious that I was no longer concentrating in class. But I still went to school. I still did all my, normal work, but it was really, really, really bad. It really affected my academics and, myself as a human being. Because the way society approaches or presents a single parent or a single mom or a pregnant girl, it's a totally different class. You're disrespected, you're insulted, you're abused, and you're supposed to get used to all that because you put yourself in this situation or you found yourself in this situation. No matter what the story is, it doesn't matter anymore. So when I eventually had the courage to go for the test and sit down to see the result, I pretty much knew what to expect. But I sat there just to be sure, just to have some evidence, some paper evidence. And to go for this test, I had to buy a ring. Yeah. I bought a ring. I went for tests about 5 to 6 times and didn't have the courage to stay to see my result or to wait to give my specimen sample, blood sample, urine sample, whatever they wanted. And I was so naive at the time, I didn't know about pregnancy strips. Otherwise, I may have just done it in my bathroom, because it was embarrassing coming out as a student to sit in a lab to be tested for pregnancy. When you're not married. So I didn't know about pregnancy strips. I had a very naive, I was a very naive young girl then. Yeah, so I didn't know about that. And because I wasn't talking to anybody about it, nobody could advise me, okay, do pregnancy strips. I finally found the courage, gathered courage, went, sat, saw my results. I wore a ring, I bought a ring, I wore it from Malam. And I waited for my results. When it came, I looked at it and I smiled. And the lady said, congratulations. I said, thank you. I got up and I left. Throughout, when I stepped out of the lab, so it was the point where the baby bump started showing that I knew that, look, if you don't tell them now, they're going to find out and it will be more embarrassing. So I had to call my dad and invite him to come and see me. So he drove 9 hours down to visit me, and I broke the news. And the first thing he asked me was, are you HIV positive? And I said no. And then he broke down in tears. He started crying. I had never seen my dad in tears until that day. And I was scared. I was scared because it was just me and him in his car. He lives in the town where my school was. So, and he handed me over to him when I resumed school. So I would go there every weekend to spend the weekend with them, and they didn't know I was pregnant the whole time. So when he took me there, and he asked him, so your daughter is pregnant and you didn't tell me? And he said, how? And he said, yeah, she's pregnant. And you didn't tell me. And he said he didn't even know about it. So it was devastating for everyone. They also saw me as a very responsible girl, and they were surprised. And I was in their house every weekend, so it was even really shocking. And this was a whole family, wife, husband, and other relatives that lived with them at the time. So it was shocking to them that the whole time, I was coming and they didn't know. So, but we all had to deal with it, and I made my dad promise not to tell my mom, because I know that she's softer. I mean, my dad, it was difficult for him, but it would be more difficult for my mom. So, and being a woman, I knew that she would want to maybe move in with me, or want me to come back home, or she would want something just to make sure that her eyes are on me, that I am fine. So it's either she moves in with me in school, or she takes me with her back home, or they move me somewhere and she stays with me. Like, she would not take her eyes off me until I have the child. That's the kind of mom I have. So I wanted to keep it away from her for as long as I could. So I and my dad agreed not to tell her until it was a date to my delivery date. So he brought her all the way down to where I was, a day to my delivery date. And she expected to see me, but she didn't know I was, pregnant. So she kept calling me on the phone, oh, where are you? I thought you'd be waiting for me already since I told you I was coming. I said, yes, I'm writing exams. And I was writing exams, but I had just finished my exams then, my second year exams. So I told her I was writing exams, that I'll be back when I'm done. That same day, she called again in the night. I said, yes, I finished very late and it's risky for me to be on my way to where you are now. So let's make it tomorrow. And she agreed. But by morning, they already, invited the people who would break the news to her and all of that. It was mainly her siblings and, people that she's closest to. So they came, had the meeting, told her I was pregnant. And I was scared. I couldn't face her. I wasn't even in the house at the time. I left. I went to the hospital. I stayed away, for as long as I could. So when they were bringing her back to the house where I was not in the house. And everybody was calling my phone, oh, where are you? Where are you? I said, I'm in the hospital. They said, what's going on? I said, I just went there to see the doctor. I'll be back. But when the doctor eventually saw me, he said I wasn't good enough to go home. So he kept me there through the night. And when they got the news, they all came to the hospital. My extended family, everybody came. So the doctor told them I can't go home that night. My mom insisted she would stay with me. So they brought her to my room and she saw me. Her eyes were swollen. She had a rosary in her hand. She had cried so much. So she looked at me. I greeted her. She didn't answer me. And then a few minutes later, she asked me, are you okay? I said yes. And that was all she said. She didn't say anything again until about 8 hours later when I was in labor, around 5 a.m. And she had to call the nurses to tell them I was in labor. So I didn't see her from that point. Okay, before she left, she told me not to scream. That if I scream this once, I would keep screaming whenever I'm in labor for any other child. So that was the only thing she said, and then she left. They moved her to a different room, moved me to a different room. And the next time I saw her was about 3 hours later when the child was born. And she was already carrying the child, so she was happy. And I think that was enough consolation for her, because, I mean, seeing that the child was healthy and I came out safe, no complications, you know, normal delivery, because there was this thing about normal delivery, you know, so I think that was enough consolation for her. And although she still had crisis after that, but I mean, for that time, she was fine.
For a young schoolgirl, abortion popped up as an option. She had several fears for her future.
I kept my child because I wanted to keep it. I didn't want to get rid of him, because I knew from my background, from the kind of life that I have lived till that point, that if anything happened, I would not even think of getting rid of it. It was difficult, you know, having to deal with all these fears, depression, uncertainties. It was really difficult.
After she told her parents, she found more strength to face schooling and expecting a child. Pregnancy-related school dropouts have become a matter of public concern in the world today. Girls who dropped out of school due to pregnancy usually never returned to school to complete their education after childbirth. The opportunities for social economic advancement are limited. Olanrewaju Jeboda is a school principal at Victoria Island Senior Secondary School. She shares how female students are expected to abandon their education should they become pregnant.
They ask the boy to come back. The girl cannot go back, because even during suspension, the pregnancy is growing. And you know, it depends on parents that we allow for termination. It's dangerous. The girl could die. So it's the girl that should always say, zip up. I'm not ready. When I am ready, I will be ready. So government frown about pregnancy, teenage pregnancy, because it's even dangerous.
The Guardian Counselor Department of a secondary school is charged with the responsibility of counseling adolescent schoolgirls who are likely to battle issues like this.
A teenager who is pregnant, I would definitely make her know the consequences of her action. I would give her various options. Definitely abortion is not an option. I would encourage her. She should have the baby. Abortion, like I said, is not an option for her. And after having the baby, she should learn to abstain.
According to medical science, a huge challenge with teenage pregnancy is the psychological trauma.
Okay, so the medical state of a teenage girl who gets pregnant is classified as high risk. High risk because the chances of losing her life in course of delivering a baby is higher than the chances of both people coming out alive. So it's usually termed high risk. What high risk means that the attention is higher and the focus is higher. And of course, the delivery pathway would have to be modified or adjusted to fit that particular child. So it's not something to celebrate or give an applaud to, but if it happens, then it has to be managed very, very carefully. And so that means if her antenatals are going to be the regular antenatals, which are 4 weekly in the first trimester, for them, you can have as much as 2 weekly. And of course, there are going to be regular scannings to find out the growth rate of that child and of course the medical condition of that child.
And pregnancy itself comes with a whole lot of issues. So there is self-neglect. The child is uneducated, unaware. She doesn't know what to do as a pregnant person. There is parental neglect because our society frowns at teenage pregnancy or people getting pregnant before being married.
And according to Lillian, depression and societal stigma are synonymous with teenage pregnancy in Africa.
Because of the way society disrespects or society represents the societal representation of a teenage mom, when a teenager finds out she's pregnant, most times because of fear and the kind of life that they stand to face if they are not strong enough to overcome it, some of us commit suicide, and the suicide rate is really high. It's high, and people are not talking about it. They're not talking about it because we are teenage moms and we are looked at as second-class citizen. I don't know why, but if a normal random young girl commits suicide, even if it's because her boyfriend cheated on her, it will make it, you know, to the internet and it will trend and everybody will talk about it and talk about it from different angles. But when a teenage mom does that, you hardly even hear the news. We just move on every day acting as if teenage moms don't commit suicide. But these things happen every day. They happen every day. And these kids are left, you know, either taken to the motherless baby home or abandoned with the parents or even taken back to the father if the father can be traced and abandoned there. And then a lot of us will hide it and sell the child, you know. Hide it, nobody will know you had a child, sell the child and go on with life. And so long as you do all these things and nobody finds out, you are the moral one. Nobody sees you as, you know, nobody looks at you in a way. But once you are seen pregnant, once everybody has seen you pregnant, they've seen the child, forget it. Except you stand firm and overcome.
And has now moved to Lagos, where she holds beautiful dreams of being married someday and building a lovely home with her husband. But the chances of dating and marriage for women who were teenage mothers in Africa are very slim, she shares.
You are stuck between either settling for somebody that you don't really like, you know, or you just settle. You just settle. You're either choosing between a widower, a divorcee, a man who has issues with, whose family, you know, who has issues having a male child, you know, maybe in the family or something. So they want to adopt your child and marry you so that you get a better deal. So there are always conversations like on social media from time to time. You see people post things like, have you ever dated a single mom? Will you ever date a single mom? What do you think? And then people are reacting in so many ways. As a single mom, when you go through such threads, you are, if you're not strong, you actually fall into depression. You know, because people just go all blunt. And I'm not saying anybody should paint it, but it's not fair to talk about something you know nothing about.
Lily is now 27. Her baby Munachi is now a cute young boy. She finds joy each day, embracing not just her son, but her decision to keep the pregnancy to full term. Unlike Lillian, there are over 100,000 adolescent pregnant girls in developing countries who would think abortion is an option. PlusTvAfrica went seeking the right answers on abortion from these medical experts.
When is abortion an option in a teenage pregnancy? When that teenager is honestly small for age. So you can see a teenage girl at the age of 13 weighing 30 to 40 kg. That teenager is even at risk. And then when the baby is also abnormal. Of course, when you do your fetal scanning, you can find out that that baby is abnormal and will cause problems because the genetics is not even mature enough to allow for a right baby. So that baby or that conception can be aborted, but then the pregnancy can last till term if all of these are right. You must remember that in recent times, many teenagers look older than their ages, and so he can still carry a pregnancy. What I'm trying to say is that the only time teenage pregnancy, teenage abortion, or abortion in teenage pregnancy is allowed is when that girl is too at risk, especially when her weight is not enough to carry that pregnancy, or that pregnancy is already a genetic misnomer. Then you want to abort the baby. And then if you check the consequences, for an example, delivering that child could cause what we call fetal fistulas, vaginal urethral fistulas. All of these consequences are there in abortion. These are some things you must also check. Bleeding is one of the consequences in abortion. So it's not also a good option to just fall back on. All right, but when you weigh the chances of allowing that woman alive, then you want to try the abortion if she is too small for age to carry pregnancy. Their medical effect is called vesicovaginal fistulas. Okay, another one is bleeding, postpartum hemorrhage, or post-bleeding, post-abortal hemorrhage till death. And you must understand that in teenagehood, blood volumes are not as massive as blood volumes in adults. So it's possible to bleed in the process of trying to abort a pregnancy. The third one is uterine rupture. You see, the uterus at that level is also friable. And so any instrumentation can rupture or penetrate and cause damage in the uterus. So you're also very careful about that. The uterus are very friable. And then, of course, the vaginal pathway is not fully established, even though there was some degree of sex.
Risk of preeclampsia, that is hypertension in pregnancy.
Yes, 80%. It's been seen that 80% of them cannot have a normal birth, except that teenager is on the big side genetically. That's from family history, is on the big side. If not, from the initial, you should just plan a CSA, cesarean section.
With Nigeria's youthful population accounting for at least 43.69% of its almost 200 million population, with women and girls accounting for 99.13 million persons as of the 2019 World Bank statistics, how aware are the teenage girls of teenage pregnancy?
Teenage pregnancy, from my own understanding, when a teenager who is not ready to get pregnant. If I get pregnant for me, I'm going to keep the pregnancy.
Keep the child, tell your parents about it, and seek advice from a respected adult.
Teenage pregnancy is when someone gets pregnant.
Teenage pregnancy is getting pregnant at a teenage age, like unwanted pregnancy, while after engaging in premarital sex.
Are teenage boys also aware of teenage pregnancy?
If a teenage girl gets pregnant, I personally think that the teenager should keep the child, but give it to the appropriate authorities or people who are capable of supporting and raising the child. Then maybe they can come and collect it at a later date when they themselves are able to take care of the child.
Proper sex education can prevent teenage pregnancy. Teenagers being taught to speak up when they've been sexually abused can prevent teenage pregnancy. And parents being more supervisive of their children to prevent any form of abuse taking place can prevent teenage pregnancy.
We catch up with a few Nigerian parents who say they would not abandon their pregnant teenage girls.
If my child come back home with pregnancy, I will feel bad, but at the end of the day, I will not chase her away. I will want to sit her down and ask her some questions about the pregnancy and some other things, which I will know the next step to take from there.
Come home with your pregnancy. You have to present the man that pregnant you so that I will go and see the person. So, in a case, you will follow the man because I didn't give my parents unwanted pregnancy.
No, abortion is not good because at times, some abortions at times may occur to maybe damage of the womb and some other things. So I don't think abortion is good for a teenage girl.
As teenage pregnant mothers daily seek to overcome the odds, break the glass ceilings and achieve excellence across various fields, it would only be appropriate for families, community structures and government to come to the aid of more vulnerable pregnant teenagers across Africa. If not for anything, at least to meet the Goal 1, no poverty, Goal 2, zero hunger, and Goal 3, good health and well-being of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals.
So bloating is abdominal disorder in the gastric tract. So when you have hair or gas locked up in the gastrointestinal tract, then you have bloating happening to an individual. You have the person bloated. So what you can do in that process is to either you can take a warm bath. If you're bloated, you can take a warm bath. You can put lemon in your water. But even before you...
Lemon in your drinking water?
Yes, lemon in your drinking water. But even before you even start, bloating could be very, very discomforting. It could cause your stomach walls to be tight. So you could have pains in your tummy. Then you could belch severely. And you can stop that by taking, you can control bloating by taking mint, things that have mint. You can take a warm bath. You can take a walk. You can take fruits like the citrus fruits. You know, lemon is equally in the family of citrus. You can take citrus fruits, you can take banana, you can take kiwi, you can take cantaloupe. You know, they're all good fruits for bloating. You can also take, I think I mentioned you taking mint. You can take anything with mint when you're bloated. Your normal fizzy drink, our everyday fizzy drink, alcohol, you know, causes bloating. Then there's some food that have gas, more gas than the others. So example is beans. So you tend to fat when you take beans. At times, some people like cruciferous vegetables. Example of cruciferous vegetables are lettuce, cabbage, and cauliflower. They're all in the family. They equally cause bloating. However, these are fruits very good to eat for the body because they are high in fiber. So when you take things that are high in fiber, you need to know how to take them so that you're not constipated. So some veggies that causes bloating, for example, your normal lettuce can make you bloated. Cauliflower, cabbage, you know, can make you bloated. While these vegetables are very good for the body, you need to know how to eat them in small portions. Like they always say, too much of everything is bad. So you take everything in little quantities. They are high in fiber. So you don't just concentrate on food that are very high in fiber and you say you're on a diet. No, that's not how it works. So you take a bit of fiber, you take a bit of protein, you take a bit of carbs, everything together, and you have a very good diet. When you eat too much, eating too much can cause bloating. Drinking too much.
Really?
You know when you're taking water and you're taking it with straw, at times you take it in with some air, so you can be bloated like that. You can take citrus. You can take add a bit of lemon into your water and drink to relieve you. You have your mint leaves. Put the mint leaf in water. Take it as a tea.
There is no voting on social media. To vote, you would require a permanent voter's card. To get your PVC, visit cvr.inecnigeria.org. Create your account with a valid email address and start the registration process. An activation link will be sent to you. Click on the link and activate your account. Fill out the form, pick and submit a convenient date and time for your biometrics. Print the application slip, which should have your QR code. On the appointed date, go to the nearest INEC office for your biometric capturing. Thereafter, you will get a registration slip to pick your permanent voter's card when ready. Get your PVC today. This message is from PlusTvAfrica. Good afternoon. This is the news update. I am Messi Bokpo. Another batch of 301 Nigerians stranded in Ukraine arrived at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja, on Saturday. The evacuees were said to have arrived from Budapest, Hungary at 8:50 p.m. via Azman Air. Returnees will get $100 transport fare from the federal government of Nigeria, free SIM cards loaded with 5,000 naira airtime to allow them reach to their family members. NIDCOM had earlier on Saturday announced that 300 evacuees will be arriving in the country at about 5:30, but the returnees eventually arrived at 8:50. Reasons for the delay were not stated by the Commission. Many Nigerians and other nationals have fled Ukraine into nearby countries since Russia launched a full-scale war on its neighbors on February the 24th. The Nigerian government approved the release of $8.5 million for the immediate evacuation of at least 5,000 Nigerians fleeing the Russian-Ukrainian conflict zone to Poland, Romania, Hungary, and Slovakia. Ekiti State Governor Kayode Fayemi believes Nigerian youths will be instrumental in changing the nation's narrative. Fayemi, who spoke at the symposium, said nation building is a continuous process and asked youth to take up the challenge by picking up interest in leadership positions. State House of Assembly is working on a bill that would mandate all job seekers applicant for a political appointment and students seeking admission into any tertiary institution of learning to undergo a mandatory drug test, which was sponsored by a former Speaker of the House of Reps, Right Honorable Kabiru Minjayawa, to seek to control the adverse effect of drugs and other illicit substance abuse on society, and also for legislative backing to strengthen the fight against drug abuse. The report.
Adamawa is one of the states in the northeast that is confronted with drug abuse cases by its teeming youth, and Adamawa State.
The problem is not only limited to our schools. What is happening in our government institution is better imagined than real. Drugs and illicit substance abuse has become a fashion amongst public and civil servants. The bill is therefore a deliberate effort by the sponsor and the honorable members to curtail the trend by nipping the problem input through legislation.
At this gathering are persons and agents of the state in the front lines of the anti-drug campaign to consider the piece of legislature, who are of the view that if the bill is passed into law, it would be a game changer in the anti-drug campaign.
We believe maybe by enacting this law, we'll reduce some crime in our society. Robbery, kidnapping, roaming about, school dropout and all that thing. It will reduce to our own understanding.
The control of drugs is paramount. It's very important because there is a saying that youth are the leaders tomorrow. But with this development of drug abuse, the chances of them to be leaders tomorrow is blinking.
Operatives of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency have arrested a preacher and the General Overseer of Christ Living Hope Church, Reverend Ugochukwu Emmanuel, for carrying 54 sticks of drugs. The suspect was nabbed at the Murtala Muhammad International Airport in Lagos while on his way to a crusade in Nairobi, Kenya. According to a statement issued by the agency, Reverend Ugochukwu was said to have wrapped the drugs around his body before his arrest. The preacher's church headquarters is in Bakwe Road, Oka, North Local Government Area in Anambra State. He has branches in Lagos and Abuja. At least 5 passengers have been confirmed killed and 3 other critically injured after bandits armed with sophisticated weapons opened fire on a vehicle passing along Yantumaki Dan Musa Road in Katsina State. The State Police Command and spokesperson Gambo Isa confirmed the incident to newsmen. Dan Musa local government area is one of the most vulnerable areas in Katsina, sharing boundary with the dreaded Rug Forest and areas like Safana and Kankara and other communities in Zamfara State where bandits are reportedly still very active. The Socio-Economic Rights and Accountability Project SERP has sued President Muhammadu Buhari over the failure to renew and rescind his reported approval for security agencies to access people's personal details via NIN and SIM linkage without due process of law. It asked the court for an order to set aside the approval, saying it amounted to violations of the citizens' right. According to the suit filed last Friday at the Federal High Court in Lagos, SERP asked the court to determine whether the approval for security agencies to access people's personal details via the National Identification Number NIN without due process was consistent with the principle of legality, necessity, and proportionality. No date has been fixed for the hearing. There is need rather for a regular eye care test in order to detect and treat glaucoma before it enters a danger zone. These are words from experts as the world marks Glaucoma Week. Plus TV Africa's news health correspondent Ngozika Ohasiechi has more in this report.
Each year, the World Glaucoma Week adopts a common theme to observe the initiative. This year's theme is "The world is bright, save your sight." This brings to fore the need for citizens to take responsibility in blindness worldwide. Some visually impaired students tell us the story of how the silent thief stole their sight away. Meet Nathaniel Ndukwe, a 200-level visually impaired student of the university.
So that is when I started noticing the slight change on my sight. So just like that, I started going from one eye clinic to another. That's when they now confirmed it to be glaucoma.
Christopher, a CN, had similar experience than Nathaniel. He used to believe that blindness affects older people until he was caught up with the blindness in his early 20s.
I used to pay people to take me out. As I told you before, before you take me out, people demand money from me. They will ask me for money. I'll pay you. But sometimes if I don't have that money to pay them, that's why I feel that embarrassment and everything. So now challenge on the road and everything.
Their eye condition isn't stopping them from improving and working towards achieving greater visions.
I passed through the craft class, so I learned how to make bead and otherwise. So that
even myself now.
Rose Azike speaks on how to reduce the risk of developing glaucoma.
Now, number one is a family history of glaucoma. If your mother, your father, or someone in your family has glaucoma, there is a likely chance your risk of getting it is high because it's hereditary. That's number one.
Government at all levels and private organizations to create an awareness about glaucoma while advising regular checks of the eye. Ngozika Ohaichesi, Plus TV News.
Actually, I'm not satisfied with the way we handle government properties and equipments in the country. Take, for instance, if you look at our roads, when the roads are constructed, they are always good. We will celebrate, but in the next 2-3 years, come and look at the road again, everything it will be something else. There will be potholes, there will be this, and there will be all over the road. Even the street lights will no longer, you see the bulbs are not working again. And that is because we lack this maintenance culture in Nigeria.
They leave these things to totally decay just in order to allocate unnecessary cash to do them, such that they can siphon this cash at the end of the day. Now, so when they are supposed to maintain this thing, when the decay is very little, they don't do it. Do you get? So once something that's supposed to fix with very little cash, when they start seeing the decay, they don't do it. They allow it to totally collapse, so that they can allocate money such that it can benefit their pocket. That's what they do. So maintenance culture is basically zero. We pray that we don't suffer dearly for our negligence.
Government facilities are put together an approval from one director from Abuja. One director needs to send approval to one. So the bureaucracy process is really one of the factors that is also affecting the maintenance culture of government facilities.
And to other parts of Africa, the repeatedly delayed talks between Chad's military-led government and armed rebel groups had kicked off in Doha. These discussions are supposed to lead up to national dialogue that should take place by October. The rebel groups had asked for their asset to be returned for an amnesty of energy. He told supporters of his at the rally in Florence, South Carolina, that he thinks the conflict could lead to World War III.
We need to help stop this brutal invasion. We also have to clean out the rot of our failed foreign policy establishment. It is indeed rotten to the core before these total lunatics lead us down the path of national ruin and World War III. They will do it too. We have to continue to drain the swamp. We did a lot of it, but the swamp was deep, deeper than anybody believed. Despite all of Biden's weakness, cowardice, and incompetence, there is still a path for him to end this tragedy in Ukraine without getting Americans snared in a gruesome and very bloody war, a bloody war. This could lead, by the way, this could lead to World War III. I see what's happening. Because if you think Putin's going to stop, it's going to get worse and worse. He's not going to accept it, and we don't have anybody to talk to him. You had somebody to talk to him with me. Nobody was ever tougher on Russia than me. I'm the one that stopped the pipeline. I had it stopped. I'm the one that put all the sanctions on. And I'm the one that he didn't attack during our administration. Everyone's asking about that now, even the radical left reporters up there. The U.S. must make clear to Putin that he has two choices: to negotiate peace right now or else face blistering consequences, including a push to permanently eliminate dependence on Russian energy. And we're talking about forever or for a long, long time. Because without the money coming in from energy, Russia doesn't work. But to make this threat credible, the U.S. would have to immediately end Biden's ridiculous war on American energy. We were energy independent.
And that's the news update. For more stories, please follow us at PlusTvAfrica on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And do subscribe to our YouTube channel at PlusTvAfrica and PlusTvAfrica Lifestyle. Many thanks for watching. I am Messi Bokbo. There is no voting on social media. To vote, you would require a permanent voter's card. To get your PVC, visit cvr.inecnigeria.org. Create your account with a valid email address and start the registration process. An activation link will be sent to you. Click on the link and activate your account. Fill out the form, pick and submit a convenient date and time for your biometrics. Print the application slip, which should have your QR code. On the appointed date, go to the nearest INEC office for your biometric capturing. Thereafter, you will get a registration slip to pick your permanent voter's card when ready. Get your PVC today. This message is from PlusTvAfrica.
Life can be fun and rewarding, but it also comes with some risk. As in business, you win some, you lose some. And that's why you need to be wise in the choices you make. It's like placing a bet. Again, you need to be wise. Wise in choosing an innovative platform with the highest market options and highest odds ever. That's why Winners Golden Bet, the leader in online, in-shop, virtual, and live sports betting, gives you enhanced platforms that offer you the best chances of winning. For betting on live soccer matches, live dog races, and virtual games. Winners Golden Bet is your best bet. Instant payment of winnings guaranteed. Play online or in any of our numerous shops nearest to you.
Hey guys, be wise. Play on Winners Golden Bet.
Winners Golden Bet, the wise choice.
Nelly Uzonna Edith Uchendu was born in 1950 in Imuchu, in Aguata local government area of Anambra State, eastern Nigeria. She was a Nigerian singer, composer, and actress. Nelly started singing at an early age. She later joined Professor Sonny Oti's music group, under where her talent flourished. Her music career shot to limelight in 1976 when Homzy Sound released her debut LP composition, Love Wantinti. Thereafter, hits like Waka, Akabueze, and Mama Hauser further established her place in the Nigerian music industry. She traversed genres, including Igbo highlife, pop, and gospel music. She died on 12th of April 2005 in a hospital in Enugu State, Nigeria, after a reported cancer-related illness. She was aged 55. Salawa Abeni was born on May 5, 1961. She hails from Ekpe, division of Lagos State, southwest Nigeria. At the young age of 8, Salawa found her niche in Waka music. Waka music is an Islamic-oriented Yoruba musical genre. It was popularized by Alaja Batile Alake, in whose worthy steps Salawa Abeni dutifully followed. She was crowned Queen of Waka music by the Alafin of Oyo, Obalamidi Adeyemi, in 1992. Her debut album, titled Late General Murtala Ramat Mohammed, in 1976, was released on the Leader Records label. It became the first recording by a female Yoruba artist to sell over 1 million albums in Nigeria. Her music is a combination of talking drums, conga, saxophone, and keyboards, amongst other instruments. She has performed in and outside the country and has released up to 12 albums during her music career. Christy Uduak Essienigbokwe was born on 11th of November 1960 in Okat Ona, Akwa Ibom State. She was a celebrated Nigerian musician and actress. Christy was 12 years old when Christy became known as Nigeria's Lady of Songs. Her greatest hits include Sheonrere, Tete Nla, Ife, Hear the Call, and Give Me a Chance. She was the first female president of the Performing Musicians Association of Nigeria, PMAN, and the chairwoman and managing director of Soul Train Entertainment. She was fluent in many Nigerian languages, including Igbo, Ibibio, Efik, Hausa, Yoruba, and English. This made it easy for her to cross tribal limitations by singing in any language she desired. Her epic Shorere broke all language barriers. Whilst Akwa Ibom's meme is regarded as the unofficial anthem of Akwa Ibom State, such was her impact across the country that whatever language she used, her message evoked emotion and reflection. Onyekanwenu was born on the 31st of January 1952 in a small town in Imo State, but she grew up in Port Harcourt. She's a singer, a songwriter, actress, activist, journalist, and politician. The Nigerian press nicknamed her the Elegant Stallion. She released her debut album, From the Love of You, in 1981 while working with the Nigerian Television Authority. The album featured an orchestral cover of Johnny Nash's Hold Me Tight. Her second album, Endless Life, was produced by Sonny Okosun, Both were released on the EMI Records.
One love set you free. One love keep us together. Living in a world, it's a struggle just staying alive. One love.
Originally a secular artist, Owenu made the transition to gospel music in the 90s, and most of her songs are self-penned. She describes her music as African pop. This consists of highlife, Afrobeat, blues, jazz, Igbo spiritual, and even juju, a typical Yoruba beat. She continues to write and sing about issues like health, HIV, peace, mutual coexistence, respect for human rights, the plight of children, as well as pride in oneself.
You and I will be as one.
Oftentimes when we see celebrities either on social media, television, or in person, we assume they have it all together, but we forget that they're also human. Well, here are some of the low points of some of your favorite celebrities.
As a young person growing up, I have had to sell akamu on my head. You know, yeah, on a tray. You go like in the morning, like very early in the morning before I go to school. Buy akamu, you know. That's why you should never underrate anyone, no matter the situation. You see them or you find them. When I go to UK and had to play at the Rio Festival Hall with Mary Makiba, then, oh my God, I'm like, that akamu selling girl. That was selling akamu. You know, so be inspired. Be inspired. Follow your dream. Follow your heart. Sit back and say, what is my passion in life? What can I do to better the world? And before you know it, you're already making an impact.
When I came to Lagos here after school, I remembered I entered what is called 911. 911 is a kind of lorry found then that they will load Gary, load in at the back. Then in between the driver and the load, we have what is called second class. And that is where I sat. And could you believe that by the time I got to Ido and I came down, my box, my shoe, because it took us 3 days from Bender, from Midwest to Lagos, all my loads were loaded. You see, when you pass through such, and when you become somebody, you look back and you look at what people are going through, it makes you to help others.
When I decided to be an apprentice photographer, we were living in Ebute and I would trek, you know, from Ebute into Willoughby, from Willoughby into cross the Leventis into Ido Road, past Ido railway station, go across the Kata Bridge, and then into Agbogbon, into Broad Street. And I trekked that for 1 whole year. And then finally, when I got to London, I had to be a cleaner, you know, every morning. Get out of the house by 4:30 to clean till 9 a.m. and then rush off to school. So I've done quite a lot of things like that, and I still continue to do that. And so for me, it is part of one's development. And I didn't see that I was suffering. Occasionally, fit, and then I go on.
I finished that film and I became very famous. As young as I was, I didn't even know what it was. Everybody would just be calling me. I'm like, what's wrong? What's going on? When the film was all over the place, so I couldn't go to the market. And I used to go to the market a lot, you know, to go and buy all these second-hand, all the second-hand outfits. And then there was one day I went to the market with a couple of my friends, and I just realized that I just couldn't buy these things anymore because they would tease me. The market, the people in the market, the traders would always tease me and said, so you see, they come buy Bendam Boutique, you know. So that made me realize that, oh, so if I become a star, there are a lot of things I won't be able to do, or what? So I went back and I said to myself, is this how I'm going to live my life? I won't be who I want to be. I won't be myself. And I said, no, I won't let that catch up with me. Just be who you are, no matter your craft, no matter how high you think you've become. Still be that same person that the girl next door, still the girl or the boy next door that people can always relate to.